because this seems to come up a lot in a lot of the public safety working groups, as well as some of the other forums that are out there, but that's thermal palettes. There seems to be some thought out there that one thermal palette is better than the other, and I'm here to tell you that that is not true. Each and every manufacturer, and even down to different platforms, have a variety of color palettes for you to choose from. There is no right or wrong palette to utilize when doing thermal operations. Some people may like a black hot, some people might like white hot or iron bow or rainbow. They all have their uses. It's just figuring out what works best for you and your agency, and figuring out what works best for particular call types. Some might offer better resolution outdoors as opposed to indoors. Some might give you a broader range of colors. It really just depends on what your application is and what aircraft you have. So I want to just pause here.
And just aircraft. I've got handheld, mounted ones, long range ones. Well, obviously you can zoom in and zoom in out, and you can collaborate to get body shapes and collaborate when it comes to the NHS medical industry to detect human biological mechanical works of the human body. And when it's come corrupted, when it's racketeering, when they're going out targeting, they've got a database they can choose from and try and get damning personal persecutions via the healthcare industry's family court protection. Now, they're rogue in the UK, rogue around the world, rogue in Coventry, West Midlands, in the Coventry NHS healthcare, Birmingham healthcare, West Midlands, London. They're all over the UK. They've been going out targeting more than ever since the introduction of the internet and the equipment being enabled to network. Anything they do on the field, and when they've got it in for TIs, want to do personal persecutions, they've got a database which is stored with images, body shapes, facial expressions, body language, activity, eye looks, aureology, iris, scanning equipment with them. And because researchers are doing it as well, there's going to be plenty of corruption, plenty of abuse of authority in the industry. Whether it's the medical researchers, whether it's NHS healthcare looking to detain TIs into mental health or put into elderly care homes. And that has exploded since the internet. They've got loads of community members corrupted, brainwashed into the ideology, methodology of conspiring with the NHS healthcare people they know, whether in the family, whether in the community, whether through word of mouth, doing a favour for someone else they know who's doing it. I'm going to earn some extra income and boost the bank balances. Now there's all various ways of doing it all. Like I say, we can do it with drones, aircraft, do it with sensors that the implant will move TIs into, implant around the property, be it next door, apartment above, below, either side. And there's various equipment, apparatus, devices, technologies out there that they can use to track and trace TIs everywhere they go, even their own personal properties, or in work buildings, or in vehicles, shopping centres, shopping malls, any building they go into, they can track and trace them. And when they want to do psychological operations, if the TIs ain't got knowledge of it all, they can easily entrap them into reactions. And when they use con artists, fraudsters, to do street theatre for them, to try and get reaction at targets, or to use them as body doubles, as eye doubles, as body language doubles, to defraud the courts, defraud healthcare, and a lot of the time there is rogue government servants who turn a blind eye to it all and make out that it is the TI, that the rogue covert operators and rogue healthcare abusers are submitting clinical close-up photographs, videos and sound recordings lying and saying it's a target that needs to be detained.
And ask a question, from everybody on this call, what pallets are you guys utilizing the most in the field? I know we got some guys that have a ton of experience and some on here that aren't the most experienced when it comes to these kind of operations. What pallets are you having, great success with? Again, no right or wrong answer here. Don't make me start calling names. So White Hot and the first one. So I believe that first one in the top left is Iron Bow. And then Jeff Pitcher says Red Hot and Rainbow, Hot Metal and Black and White. Okay, excellent. So again, guys, it's going to be a range. You're going to find one that works for you. Your partner on tomorrow's shift might be using a completely different set of pallets that work for him. It is just all about figuring out what works best for you and your agency. As you can see from the different answers we got here, none of these guys are using the same pallets at all. But these are all very experienced guys that I would trust, and you can see we have a broad spectrum. So don't ever let anyone tell you that there is a specific pallet that you need to be utilizing. There is no right or wrong. It's all about spending some time with the aircraft, figuring out what works best for you.
And that's where the medical industry, the researching industry, the NHS healthcare industry has gone wrong. These technologies should only be used when necessary and only by police forces. Not police forces using them and conspiring on the field, networking from the field to healthcare abusers, medical abusers, NHS abusers, mental health abusers, and the elderly care home sector abusers. They should not have these technologies.
The next thing I want to get into, again, another thing that seems to have a ton of misinformation and a large lack of understanding across the broad range of public safety, I think, is isotherms, thermal blindness. So first and foremost, what are isotherms, or what is the isotherm functionality? So isotherm functionality is available on a couple of different aircraft, mainly DJI aircraft, but essentially what it does is highlights a range of temperatures with a color change. So this makes objects stand out against a background of a different temperature, or it's used to highlight areas of a field which have exceeded a certain temperature. Again, only offered on radiometric sensors right now, and I believe isotherm functionality is limited just to DJI platforms right now. In a perfect world, isotherms sound like the be-all, end-all. But isotherms, if you don't have a good understanding of how to apply them and some of their shortcomings, you can end up in a situation dealing with what we call thermal blindness. And so what is thermal blindness? So this image right here is giving a perfect example of thermal blindness. Thermal blindness is when we set our isotherms in a temperature range because we think we're going to pick an item or an object or a person out of a background. But one thing to understand about these thermal sensors is they cannot see through glass, they cannot see through concrete, they cannot see through skin. Skin being the key here. They are measuring temperature at the surface of our skin. So what I've seen a lot of times on social media is guys will come on and they'll say, if you just set your isotherms between 80 and 100 degrees and go fly on a cold night, you'll be able to pick humans out no problem because they'll stand out. The problem with that, 80 to 100 degrees is our core temperature. Thermal sensors cannot see through skin. So what if grandma walked out of the back of the nursing home in just her robe? It's a cold night, right? Very chilly night. She's been outside for a couple of hours. The drone team is called out on scene. We put our drone up in the air and we set our isotherms between 80 and 100 degrees because that's what we've been told to do from what we've read on social media. And we go out and we start flying. And we spend 3 hours flying and never find grandma, but one of our traditional ground teams finds grandma, and she is pissed off because she's been waving her hands at our drone that's flown over her about 20 times, and now she's wondering why we didn't see her. And that's because of thermal blindness. Again, grandma had been out in the cold for several hours. The temperature at the surface of her skin probably closely relates to the ambient temperature of the outside air. So if we've set our isotherms between 80 to 100 degrees and the temp at the surface of grandma's skin is 70 degrees, we're going to fly over her all night and we're never going to see her because we are not appropriately dialing in our thermal sensor. It's not seeing her because we're looking for some objects to stand out that are within that 80 to 100 degree range. And so in public safety, we often talk about these aha moments for how we get greater buy-in from command staff, how we get bigger budget, more equipment, etc. Well, those aha moments, that's a two-way street. Big wins can lead to program expansion, but big losses, like what we're talking about now, can have your program shut down because we've just spent, let's say $50,000 to spool up our drone program, and we just spent 3 hours flying trying to find grandma, but we completely missed her, and traditional search methods are what found her. So that makes its way back to the chief, and now he's wondering, why are we spending all this money on technology if our traditional methods are what actually went out and found this woman? And it's simply because we did not have the wherewithal and the mindset and the understanding on how to apply this technology appropriately. So it is incredibly important that you guys train with these thermal sensors. And if you're going to use isotherms, you need to get out there and train with them so that you understand the limitations. Because the same is true on the other side of the coin, where grandma walked out in the cold, but the same thing could be applied on a hot day as well. Let's say we're looking for somebody in a wide open space with a couple of trees. We set our isotherms to a specific range on what we think this person's body temperature would be. Maybe we set it correctly on would think the surface of, or the temperature at the surface of his skin would be out in the direct sunlight. But what if this guy is sitting in the shade of a tree and that's cooled him down significantly? So now that same thermal blindness applies in the same way, whether it's hot or cold. And that's why it is so incredibly important for you guys to get out and do some training to understand the capability and the limitations. And I see Andrew's got his hand raised. So Andrew, if you want to unmute yourself, man, I'll let you chime in here.
Hey, John.
And so that's the technology that they've got on the field, which has made its way into the medical industry, healthcare industry, and the rogue, overt and covert operators who've got all sorts of technologies similar to thermology and has to be outlawed. It's got to be outlawed from the industry, outlawed from NHS, worldwide healthcare organisations, from the local council authorities, and the technology should only be used for criminal purposes, criminal investigations, and for rescue operations. Now, a lot of people will think, okay, the isotones, ain't really relevant to the TIs. It's not. I mean, I'm just explaining the technology that's in the hands of these rogue surveillance monitoring teams who are aiding and abetting local council authorities. The technology they're using on TIs, that includes the remote neural monitoring neural networks, has to be banned indefinitely, forever, in the UK, not only in the UK, but around the world, for the good of humanity, and to stop these criminal networks from earning any money and prospering from crime, and to stop the abusers in authority, in local council authority, in healthcare, in social services, in the mental health, in the adult care home sectors, and all the evil wannabe neuroscientists, neurologists, sociologists, behavioural scientists, psychiatrists, psychologists, from going out on the field and using technology to aid and abet rogue, defrauding, criminal practising, clinical close-up researching, studies, model making, and all various sub-projects they're doing linked to medical and NHS, human biology, human anatomy, and the brain sciences linked to neuroscience, neurology, the Brain Initiative, and the Brain Project. There has to be a worldwide ban on it all. And NEUROLAW has to be implemented in every country to stop these criminals and these rogue criminal practising local authorities in healthcare, in the medical industry and NHS from doing illegal criminal practising non-consensual experiments. Everyone digest that all, psychoanalyse it all, and between everyone from whichever country, religion, colour, creed that you're part of, you have to stand up for NEUROLAW, neuro rights, and stop these brain experiments happening in your community, anywhere in the world. Over and out.